on the screen. Let's get into this series. Direwolves versus Renegades. Can we take down the second major team on the day number 3?
I mean, the opening might be there, but Direwolves are going to have to work for it already on the back foot off of this kickoff right now. That Renegades attack is so dangerous. They're so quick to the ball. I like Fiber just getting in Kami's way, but it's not really enough to clear space back.
Bacon was talking as well about shutting somebody down, but I don't know how you shut down Kami. Fever is incredibly powerful, and I think he's the player you have to take out. But then when you add in the chaotic element of CJ, you don't even know where he is. You don't know where to go for a demo or a block on him. So it's going to be very difficult for Direwolves, but it is one of their specialties, getting demos, getting blocks in that defensive half.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, historically, they have been that team that is comfortable with their back against the wall, trying to find avenues to get that ball to Fiber, clearing up the space, and then playing it up on a more individual level. Misty has been another one who's kind of stepped up, sometimes in a similar role to Fiber, I feel like, as we're watching Fiber right now. Look at that. I mean, that's why you never want to leave Fiber alone.
It was interesting to see Renegades not challenging that one, because Fiber in that situation, he scored so many times. Misty's hanging forward and goes for the back pass there. Very team-oriented, Misty, with most of his touches. He's not just always looking towards that net. He's usually looking to connect with either Fiber or Walker.
And he's very good at utilizing the backboard. I found him finding those connections, although this time, backboard not necessary. Fiber gets the first goal of the series.
And this is an incredible start, not just for the fact that they score this goal, that Misty finds that pass, but the fact that they kept Renegades pinned in the defense, pinned towards their net, giving Direwolves a lot more space.
And it's rare to see the Direwolves actually holding opponents of the Renegades caliber in those situations, so it's a very promising sign. Very fortunate Misty was back for that one, otherwise we would have seen a very worrying sign. But as a Sam, yeah, the Direwolves striking first, that's pretty strong. However, Riot was scoring a lot of first goals against the Renegades yesterday.
Yeah, Renegades, one of the best teams mentally in terms of making comebacks mid-game and making adjustments mid-game. This is only the first goal, but what we need to see from Renegades to turn that momentum around is just to get more in the face of Direwolves, to play a bit more of an aggressive game like we normally see from Renegades.
I mean, we saw it right there. They send all 3 members at that player in the midfield, and it almost resulted in a goal for CJ. The field slowly shrinking for the Direwolves right now, struggling to find that clear. And if the Renegades can keep this pressure, keep this offensive rotation, eventually you'd have to think they're going to crack that defense.
Good positioning again by Misty, and he's going to take it slowly out just to build some extra room once again. Direwolves, if they have space on the pitch, then they are in good spot, and they're so good at creating it right now with so many of these solo plays.
That was spooky. We saw Fiber with space before. We almost see a little bit of Fever with space right there. Not really able to corral that, and because of the double commit, that's possession gone. Back to the middle of the field, though. CJ is going to find that second touch and also find a defender in the way.
Oh, good passing plays coming out from Renegades, but Direwolves have been ready once again. Even still, it's in front of the Direwolves defensive area, that danger area, and Kami will be looking for a shot, sends it wide. The accuracy not there at the very beginning of this series.
I almost wonder if that was intentional to try to get Walcott out of the way. Shot from CJ was on target, but so too was Fiber on that defensive effort. But still, Renegades able to find these tight infield passes again and again. The Direwolves have just been unable to press out of the box. Finally, it's an errant touch, but it results in a bit of a whiff, and still the Renegades can't capitalize.
You can see the 2 different ways that these guys are forming open spaces, and for Renegades, it's about passing. He got 3-person pass play, CJ over to Kami, and he manages to keep that direction going across the pitch to find Fever.
And Missy just stuck a little bit in no man's land. So difficult to make that save when you have no momentum. And the reason why they're back there is because of that constant pressure that the Renegades were putting forward. So even though it only results in 1 point, it really felt like the Renegades had that point coming for the past 2.5 minutes.
And a large part of the strength of Direwolves has been their ability to predict where the ball is about to go, what touch is coming out from the Renegades, and often that's based on positioning. But when you have a pass like that from Kami that continues going that crossways direction, it really surprises you. Normally expecting the ball to change the direction alongside the direction you're coming from as a player.
Yeah, it's very difficult to read those types of plays, and Kami has been one of the best at setting those up. Weird commit right there from the Renegades as two of them drive through the corner. That could be the opening for the Direwolves. Misty will lead the charge, gets a nice flick. Fever's up for it, doesn't make contact, but CJ recovers the play.
Because Direwolves aren't pushing too hard as well, that gives Misty the chance there to make the solo play and follow it up with a demo attempt. So Renegades have to be careful about this, and there might be another chance here as Walcott also likes that solo play into bump, into demo. He wasn't able to find it past 2 that time, but we've seen awkward moments from Renegades at that front post.
Yeah, whenever the Direwolves start to follow through these individual efforts, the Renegades need to be prepared for it. Misty now, again, going for the solo play. That's a good touch, but from behind, that was Kami who cleared it out. 5 seconds left in regulation. That demo might stop the Direwolves from finding the goal. Fiber keeps it alive. Ball will come off the wall. Walcott has some boost to play with. Gonna try to dish it down to Misty, who's not there.
Fever didn't really want to keep that ball up. He wasn't trying to hit the bottom corner. It's always dangerous with Direwolves.
Oh no!
Almost a kickoff goal. That was scary, but Walcott thankfully turned towards the net, not forward off that kickoff.
That would have been a heartbreaker away to lose for the Direwolves, who have been competitive for so long in this opening game. Now they have a chance to end it. Shot from Walcott will be collected by Fever. Misty should be able to set something up, though. Again, has the boost for that solo play, has the reset. CJ steals it off him.
Even still, there's forward pressure coming out for the Direwolves. They've been able to get multiple chances to hit that ball forward and follow it up, but this is just ping pong back and forth off the backboard every single time, and that's because nobody wants to challenge and close that gap until Fever does. And gets the shot. Misty makes the save.
You kind of know if the ping pong game starts off yummy, it is going to be the Renegades being the team that's going to cheat forward, that are going to be more of the aggressors. Fever, fearless in playing it up the field, again goes for the solo play. This time Walcott makes the goal line save.
Good pass over to CJ2, and an even better shot. Had to reach for that save, Direwolves, but they managed to hold on. Great in their clutch defense.
They have to be against the Renegades. I mean, they're hunting for that goal. Eventually, I do feel we're going to see a team pass come out, though, because both of these teams at this stage have been relying quite heavily on that individual effort.
There's been a lot of passes for the Renegades plays, but then you connect it with Fever's solo plays as well for a variation. I want to see the pass come out from Direwolves, actually, because at the moment, they're conditioning Renegades to think that it's going to be a play forward, it's going to be a shot towards net, and maybe a dribble to follow it up, and that's when the crossover will catch them off guard.
Well, speaking of being caught a little bit off guard, Misty alone on defense, but no one from the Renegades was there to follow it up. Now, it's going to be Misty again, goes for a reset underneath, and it barely gets to the goal line. Fiber bangs it through, and the Direwolves take game number 1.
Misty does so well there. Fakes CJ under, fakes Kami under, fakes Fever under. He's beaten them all. He's forced them all to commit, and that is clutch in a 2-minute overtime.
And it is game on for both of these teams right now. The Renegades aren't going to have their perfect event. They're not even going to have a perfect series right now because the Direwolves, they've showed up to play.
Yeah, they've looked stronger and stronger, and that shows that the work has paid off for them in the off series. Again, it's not about one player having a huge performance. It's not about Fiber having the series of his lifetime or Misty having the series of his lifetime. We know Walcott has had consistent performances across the last year even. Now we're looking at a Direwolves that feel like a complete unit.
Yeah, they showed brilliancy on defense, I feel like, particularly through this first game. And when the opportunities were there to kind of pressure the Renegades and put them on that uncomfortable back foot, I mean, Direwolves fearless in terms of their positioning on the pitch. They were playing so far forward. Granted, can you keep that up against a team that is so adaptable, that a team that has that major pop-off potential? I mean, taking one game off the Renegades is tough enough. They still need to do it 3 more times.
But a style like this gives Direwolves so much more faith in the fact that in the past they've always come in super confident. They've at times looked like the best team in OC. They've won off-season tournaments time and time again, and then it goes to RLCS and they've only ever taken 1 second place. And as we know, second place gets you to the major. If you come second place every single time in OC, you will get it. If they win this, Direwolves, they go into that second place guaranteed.
Yeah, with the best position to take a first place as well, and working under the assumption that Ground Zero is going to come back with a vengeance. All these points that you can get massive if you want to pull off that late-term upset and get yourself to the major.
That was a disappointing start there for Kami, though. He had all of the net to hit at. He had every opportunity, a bit of space too, and he just couldn't get around the ball enough or underneath the ball enough to put it high up in the net over the top of the defenders.
Well, now Fever will have a chance, and pre-jump almost on that defensive effort right there. Fever did keep possession, but doesn't find the shot. CJ passed back to Kami, although Fiver's playing fearlessly right now, just looking to challenge a bit further up the pitch. And if the Direwolves are feeling more confident, if they're taking more risks on challenging the ball, it could turn into something. Misty versus Kami. Backboard wins out. Follow-up shot saved by CJ.
Misty's playing very, very forward on a lot of these plays too. He's pushing up hard and providing very quick counter-attack opportunities. Combine that with the demo they just had, and it's only going to be a matter of time where Renegades can't defend because they'll only have one person back against these aerial plays that involve flip resets, that involve easy outplays of one member.
And now they have another opportunity as well for the Direwolves. Fiber nearly let that get away from them. Eventually, the Renegades defense was able to fall back. I do agree with you, though. It does feel as if the Direwolves are kind of one bump, one demo away from making these longer, drawn-out counterattacks actually work. I mean, the fact that they are consistently finding these angles, finding these openings, has to be worrying for the Renegades.
I'm still kind of waiting for maybe the likes of Kami to start pushing forward and going for those early challenges, going for those demos he's known for, those wide rotations forward that really solidify them as a controlling team, as a team that prevents somebody from being able to actually make a rotation, from being able to make a play. There's so much gumption here behind Direwolves, so much ability here to use that open space, and they've been so close to scoring multiple times this game.
They're getting closer and closer, but it feels like almost CJ has been that thorn in the side of the Direwolves instead of Kami. I'm noticing a lot of the demos coming from CJ, a lot of the bumps, a lot of those deep saves. CJ just everywhere on the pitch. Well, now Kami's getting that demo onto Fiber. That's going to slow the Direwolves down.
But those demos are coming in defense. That's not where the Renegades want them. They usually go for the demos at the other end to throw off the Direwolves rotation. Direwolves are happy for the demo when they're in attack because they usually only send one person forward. They don't plan on having them, but finally Renegades pick it up. They get the pass. Kami scores the first.
We were waiting for this pass play to come through, and of course, it's going to be Fever mixing it up. You never know if Fever's going to try to take it himself. We were talking about how threatening of a player they are. This time, they find Kami underneath, and it's a 1-0 Renegade lead.
Most importantly for Fever there, it's such a soft, delicate touch. It's really difficult in that position to not be slamming it across, and that's what Direwolves were playing for. But there's the advantage of the comms over to Renegades. Fever can say, I'm going to touch it down for the pass, and you got it perfectly across for Kami.
Yeah, it looked practiced, it looked smooth, and now it's looking more like a Renegades game, perhaps up 1-0 against the Direwolves, although Direwolves still hunting for that goal. It still feels like we're playing a majority of this game on that orange side of the pitch, so the Renegades cannot afford to ease up just yet. That's a massive bump. Walcott, though, struggles to collect the ball.
And now Fiber's the one hanging forward. He has to rush back now. A very good trust of his teammates. We're seeing some aggression coming out from Direwolves. And I think that's good confidence, but maybe it's overly so as CJ snipes the angle.
That angle was so tight, and you could tell the Direwolves rotating through on defense. They were expecting the backboard pass, not the sniper attempt, but CJ squeezes it through. 2-0 lead, only a minute and a half left.
And maybe a bit of frustration from Direwolves because they were willing to push up. They were at that other end for so long with the ball, with multiple opportunities and good passing plays, and they weren't able to score. So that gets into Fiber's mind subconsciously. He's kept pushing up. He kept wanting to get that goal, and that made him late on the way back.
And maybe the Direwolves will start to play a little bit more honest as a result, a bit further back. And I feel if they lose that aggressive edge, they might lose a bit of that momentum that they had against the Renegades early on. 1 minute left to play, it's down 2 goals. Really want to see the Direwolves play it forward, so really want to see them take some risks and try to get back in this game.
That is a risk from Fiber with a pre-jump, but it's not going to be possible to find a good angle for it. And that's going to stop any chance of Direwolves getting a quick counterattack. In fact, Renegades are starting to gain a lot more confidence with the 2-goal lead. They want to keep going forward with it, not stay on their haunches.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they almost need to, considering how the first half of this second game went. Renegades would love to shift the entire field, the entire momentum, more in their favor. That net looks so open. CJ with the follow-through, not able to squeeze it past Fiber.
If that was Fiber or Misty back there, they'd be looking more for an aggressive play. But because it was Walcott, he was sitting in that net ready for the shot to come in. That was the only reason he was able to stretch across, because it was really nicely placed.
It was a very strong shot, but overall it's a very strong game for the Renegades. Late pinch from Fever, not quite going to hit the mark, but the timer will hit 0. Ball will eventually hit the ground, and the Renegades tie this series up.
May even get a third goal. Hits off the crossbar. Renegades, though, they tie up the series, and they do it while keeping Direwolves scoreless.
Yeah, and that shutout, I think, is going to be pretty big. Not that Direwolves are necessarily known for running up the score, but when you consider how much of the first half of that game was played on the Renegade side of the pitch, I think it's quite impressive. I mean, only 5 shots, though, taken overall by the Direwolves, and I think that's a credit to the Renegades' defense as well, under pressure, not allowing those openings for the shots to come through.
A lot of the times, though, it was very, very close to it being a disaster for Renegades, you know, just being in the right position to go up from maybe even in front of the ball, so they couldn't get those clears. It could have compounded into a lot more, and I actually think that maybe that's just a lack of experience from Direwolves in a pressure-based playstyle, in a playstyle where you try and pin someone in to their own defense. They weren't stealing enough boost, they weren't getting that demo at the right time, they weren't getting that pass play when it opened up that truly creates that goal, despite the fact that they spent 2/3 of the first half of that game in that Renegades area.
It's interesting to me because, again, that's not typically a Direwolves play style coming into a matchup like this. And it could be a case they're trying to build that foundation into the future, trying to be a more dynamic, a more, multi-look team in those types of situations. It didn't really work in game 2, but if they continue with it, yeah, I would love to see new looks from the Direwolves.
And this is a series that realistically they can do it in. I mean, Renegades, a very strong team, and you're not going to be backing yourself to be able to take a win like that or to execute a playstyle like that against the Renegades. But you've got that, it's early on, you can experiment a little bit, you can catch Renegades off guard while trying it, so it lessens the effect of your uncomfortableness by actually projecting that on top of Renegades at the same time.
And worst case scenario, fall back to what you know best and see how that one goes up against the squad. Granted, Bacon feels like that the Renegades have the Direwolves number whenever they do. I'm not too sure on that. I think the Direwolves have been playing a bit more consistent, and sometimes playing your own game helps. As it stands, we're seeing a very far forward Direwolves, and we're seeing a very slow-moving ball right now.
I mean, the only time Direwolves really beat the Renegades was in the off-season, in a non-RLCS tournament, and Renegades have shown in the last split the counter to all previous tournaments, all previous splits we've seen across the last 1.5 years. They've finally become a team that can perform on game day. Heck, they did it against the best in the world. They did it against the Endpoint, the #1 seed, so they can do it in OCE as well.
Oh, I love that demo from Walcott. Missy just not quite in the right position. But to go back to your point, yeah, I still think that win right there over Endpoint is why OCE is better than EU.
I mean, you're wrong and silly, but sure, it was a great series overall. But we haven't seen Direwolves at the international land. Only Walcott has been there, and you know what? He didn't win a single game. We know he wants to go back. We know he can do better than going 0-6 at an international land. He's got that drive to go back. Fiber and Missy have been incredibly driven. We've seen that work in the off-season, and I'm just hoping that it continues to pay off like it has the rest of the weekend.
I mean, Fiber in particular, another one of those young guns, right? Similar to the Amphis, similar to the Fever. That
he was in the same conversation as them.
Exactly, and as soon as you get him on that international stage, then we'll be able to really show themselves off. So the Direwolves have all of that to play for right now. They're going 0-0 against the Renegades. They're taking it to him. Speaking of Fiber, almost finding that double touch off the ceiling.
I think the one thing you can really credit Fiber with is he's been super loyal.
Big demo.
To Misty. It's a massive demo, and Misty actually finds the angle. I thought he'd leave the pass, but he's able to get it no matter what.
I mean, that shows me a lot of things. A, that angle is insane, but B, recognizing that, you know what, if we go for the pass, the Renegades, they're fast enough, they might disrupt it. I have to take this shot. They make it happen. Direwolves now with the 1-0 lead.
And that shows why Fiber has been loyal to Misty and in reverse. Misty has had these chops to get amazing goals, to be an astounding player, and we've seen it multiple times in recent history that he can pull off plays.
That he can, and now has to pull off a little bit of a defensive play. He with the cross up off of the post, not quite in. Fever still beats out Fiber. Walcott, though, will be the one who passes it across this midfield.
That's what Renegades have been talking about. The accuracy, right? Well, Kami had his opportunity, and he was going for the accurate shot, but ends up sending it too high. Maybe a curse that we've seen before from Kami.
Perhaps Kami just still not quite getting where they want to be. Pass down to CJ, will not connect. Kami, though, throws it back into the box. Misty's already there. CJ again goes for the tight angle. This time off of Fiber, off of the post, and out of the box. Walcott gets the save.
No one can score right now for the Renegades. It keeps being incredibly close. Tight angles for sure in terms of getting up to it before it hits the crossbar. And yet, Renegades should have had one of these.
There it is.
Finally score. Kami sinks it in and makes up for earlier.
And that's got to feel good from the man from New Zealand right there. Great setup from Fever, but Kami just completely has the read, whereas Walcott was trying to recover. Tie ball game, only over a minute to spare.
When you think about the fact that Renegades, they're not just looking for this next major, they went to the last one, they're looking for that Worlds run. If they go to another major here, they can certainly lock themselves up, and that's what's been the driving force between them scrimming pretty much more than anyone else in the region. They've been scrimming 3 times a day compared to the average 2 that is average not just in OCE, but all over the world. 2 is the standard, and they're going beyond.
I find it interesting, too, when you look at a lot of our top teams. CJ is going to get that double and just shut me right up.
It's devastating as well for Direwolves. Felt like they worked so hard in this game. They got that 1-goal lead, but it's not enough. Renegades can score so quickly. It was such a quick counterattack, a turnaround from CJ as well, and confidence to push up that hard when you have that position that Direwolves could quickly turn it around with an intercept.
Well, they're going to turn it around with an intercept in the box, Yummy. They're going to do just that right there. Tie ball game once again as Walcott just kind of played it forward. It was less of an intercept, more of a slow defense, actually. Well played out of the Direwolves.
You can't really expect Kami to react when Fever's right in front of that ball, covering it as well. But look how many times Misty has been in a situation in that aerial box in front of the net where he's getting an extra touch over the top of the defenders and surprising the Renegades.
It's a pleasant surprise to see the Direwolves play that far forward and keep the Renegades on that back foot. And to go back to kind of that previous point about like the practice and the scrimming and the trials, I mean, Direwolves are arguably the second hardest team grinding out there from what I've been able to gather. So like these are the 2 teams, best 2 results thus far. They have been the 2 teams that have been working the hardest. I don't think it's that much of a surprise. Misty, with 3 seconds to go, finds the gap and the Direwolves take the late lead.
What a back and forth game this has been, and Walcott that time bamboozling Fever, making the touch. The hits it against the backboard, and Direwolves, they only have 3 seconds that they have to hold on for.
Yeah, you think they'd be able to have it, but it's CJ with possession. Ball comes off the roof. Kami is there. Misty shuts it down, and the Direwolves retake the lead in the series.
That's back and forth if I've ever seen it. And Misty down the bottom left, he's got to be pleased with himself. I feel like he's really stepped up in such a connecting role. He's always looking to find a pass, an outplay, and I feel like he's the one right now bringing Direwolves together as a unit.
I mean, he's got that nice little star above his name, not just because of the score. I do have to agree, he did play like an MVP in that situation. But a big takeaway I was seeing at the end of that game was how we sort of saw a shift in playstyle. The Direwolves, they played a lot more of that game back on their own half. It wasn't that same aggression for the entire game like what we saw in our previous one, but they picked their moments that time around, and I feel like that's the more successful way to approach it.
And I can understand this tactical timeout from Renegades as well. I think There's so many times where they're letting Direwolves dictate the play. There's so many times where they're not pushing out for a challenge against the likes of Misty and Fiber, who will use that space so well. They're getting pinned in their own half, but it's not lasting like that an entire game. You see there's moments where they're trying to play the Renegades playstyle, where they're trying to push forward, and so their playstyle right now is inconsistent. So what they're saying, what Coach Lockie is saying, what CJ is probably saying, maybe even Fever, you can see him talking a lot in that break, is, hey, let's get to our basic playstyle. Kami's very good at making little tiny adjustment suggestions, like, okay, let's make sure that in this moment here, that we're continually hitting the backboard, for example. That's where we're finding the success. And I think once they solidify one playstyle and just try and execute something a lot simpler, Renegades will regain.
All right, well, let's roleplay a little bit, Yummy. Let's put you in Lockie's shoes right now. What is that playstyle you think they should be approaching? Because I'm liking the passes a little bit further back out of the box, more in that middle of the field, as really getting those driving power shots like what we saw from CJ in the replay.
I mean, if I'm in Lockie's shoes, I'm saying, Eshe, bar, you know, and saying, build a bridge, just play our playstyle, get the comms up. Like, I feel like that's all Lockie ends up saying. But I think for him, he's a real positive force for that team. And even though I make that joke about him, you know, saying that stuff, that can be very successful in raising the morale for this team as well. I think for the most part, though, when it comes to gameplay, he lets the players take charge of that.
All right, so we'll see what the players then want to do in our fourth game already. They're on that attacking half. Fiber, though, will be the player with possession, just trying to drive it right back over to the Renegades. The ping pong's getting started up once again. Kami follows it through, but as I mentioned before, when the ping pong starts, expect the Renegades to be the first team to play it forward.
Yeah, they've been following up a lot nicer here, and they're in that forward half. You can see a spread here from both Kami and CJ, and that's a setup for more of a pressure play as well to keep Direwolves pinned. And with Walcott on low boost, if they do manage to pin either Fiber or Misty down, they will be able to score a goal, but nobody cross-field there for CJ.
Yeah, Walcott, even with the low boost, is still the player who finds that deep clear across on his way to said boost. But doesn't matter if Fever can find shots like that, nearly powering that one in.
The ball almost exploded with the amount of power he got. There was smoke coming off it. Direwolves had to stretch to make a save when he took that shot from midfield, and that's led to all of this pressure. You can see the boost now only on Misty. He has to make a big solo play here, and Fever gets it past him. An opportunity that Fiber is going to shut down now.
But again, Fiber didn't have time to collect that boost, so can only go so far with it. The Renegades doing such a good job at keeping the Direwolves on that back foot, not letting them get comfortable, and eventually those shots are going to come through. A bit more power, maybe it gets behind Fiber there.
It was very difficult to get power though, because it was going straight towards Kami, because he had to play that crossfield position, and because CJ had to hit it a bit further back than he wanted just to beat that player in the air.
They'll still get more chances, though, the Renegades, you'd have to assume, although Fiber's already cheated up the pitch. Here comes the Direwolves. Walcott beats out two defenders. That's the waterfall. That's the shot, but it wasn't there in time.
Every time Direwolves are at the other end, though, the quick counterattack like that one, they're forcing Renegades to send two people up. Once again, another double commit, but it's better than Fever not being able to get contact with that ball. Direwolves looking scary with their counterattacks. Fiber again looking for the flip reset, goes to the air dribble instead to try and take it above the defender.
That was such an impressive save from Fever right there. They were on under 50 boost for a solid 6-7 seconds. It was only CJ who realistically I would think would be in position, but I mean, again, the resource starvation coming from both teams when they're attacking, just holding the defenders back, has been so impressive. And yet, these defenses are holding on, Yummy. 0-0 already nearly 3 minutes into this game.
This is maybe the one situation where I feel like Bacon could be a little bit on the money with his CJ pick as well. Even when they are in difficult situations, CJ's keeping his pace up and able to race to the ball just in time to prevent an early shot from Direwolves, and maybe even making a play of his own at the other end, but Misty was there on the backboard.
And Misty is all well. It's going to be the one trying to play it up into the Renegade side of the field. CJ first one up. The touch goes across the middle. Fever's there. Ball gets a little bit too far in front of them, however, and on that counterattack, Misty was waiting. Walcott has a chance. Gets it on target. CJ stretches back and makes the save.
Ooh, Misty up to that one quickly as well. You can see some domination in the air by the young lad Misty, and now it's the young lad Fiber instead. He's got the flip, he's got the shot, but it goes wide. That was a very good chance for Fiber to get this first goal, and it looks like this first goal could be a game winner.
I think it's definitely looking that way. Walcott can't quite find the contact. That could have been it had they been able to drive the power off that midfield shot. Instead, Fever tries to slow it down, and Misty says, thank you very much. I'll take that. I'll take that shot. I'll take that lead from the corner. Direwolves up 1-0.
Misty's desperate to win this game. We talked about that fear factor. He had no fear. He challenged Fever as he was making the play, and he's again hitting these angles off the corner.
Even if that shot was not going to go in, Fiber was right there as well. The Renegades defense just not quite in the position in that situation. Now, under a minute to go, they could be down match point if they cannot find this goal here.
And this was after Renegades called the timeout. Normally you want to see a complete turnaround of that midfield play, of the domination from a team especially like Renegades after a timeout, and yet they haven't found that groove. They haven't been able to find the openings in the Direwolves defense either, and despite the extra aggression, Direwolves have changed their own play style with these counterattacks.
Yes, and as we hit our final 20 seconds, now the Direwolves can kind of fall back a bit on their laurels. They can play that defensive game. CJ, though, found the gap but didn't find the teammate yet. Renegade still applying that pressure till Fiber clears it out all the way back. CJ has to pretty much express all the way back to that back boost. Now it comes down to one last shooting opportunity. The fake, the flick, it's off the top, and it's not gonna go in. Direwolves survive.
That was deadly at the end. You can see how Renegades are so good on those 0-second mark, but just holding on. Direwolves have played this incredibly well throughout the game. They've adjusted to Renegades and their change-up of pace, and I mean, they're just in a driver's seat. It looks like they may be about to take this series.
It's the second game in a row as well where the Renegades come through with more shots, but not really able to get those consistent goals. And to bring back your previous point, this was after a timeout. They just got shut out after the timeout. That is not easy to bounce back from.
You got to give so much credit as well to Direwolves to bring out those counterplays and to have Misty especially challenging some of those bulls that in the past were open space for Fever. You know, there's no open space for either of these teams anymore. They're constantly adjusting the pace as the series goes on, and it's been Direwolves that have been able to do the mid-game adjustment.
It's the teams that are fearless, I feel like, that are having the most success right now in this region, and there was no fear on the side of the Direwolves. And to see that, as you were mentioning, coming from Misty as well, who it felt like a lot during fall when Misty was playing at this level. That's when the Direwolves were at their best. So to see Misty is kind of picking that up right again, kind of being one of those X factors on the team that the Direwolves need, it is a good sign moving forward. Speaking of which, Misty, nice save behind the net.
Well, that's the shot accuracy again from Renegades. There's no reason for CJ to be hitting that shot there, except for the fact that they've already missed so many of their shots, including that 0-second goal that realistically should have been sunk by Kami, I think it was. But so you're now in this frame of mind where, okay, we just need to hit it center net, and that leads you to hitting it straight towards the defender.
And it's a defender on the Direwolves side that loves having balls come straight to them, because that means they can dish it out, they can find that counterattack, and they can find goals like this. Fiber making it 1-0.
Renegades are looking for the pass here. You could see Fever wanted to get across to Kami. Kami's already moving out to the corner, and it's just a complete mistouch based off the pressure of Walcott, based off his first touch as well that made it nice and high, and that makes it easy for Direwolves to get this first goal. And you got to think, they've been so good at the defense at keeping this momentum. They may be able to do it with a 1-goal lead.
Yeah, well, they're going to look for the second, as there's a little bit of a whoopsie moment from the Renegades right there to start off this second point. Fever just throwing himself at the ball. A little bit of desperation, perhaps, from the Renegades as they need to keep this ball on the blue side of the field. Walcott, though, again, finds the lob, immediately chasing it forward right now. Misty doesn't find contact with it, but the Direwolves, they've been set up right now. They have the boost. They have the plays. I expect to see attack come from them. Here we go. Fiber takes advantage of the misstep.
Mistake from CJ isn't going to help them out there either. Direwolves now with a potential midfield play. Misty's got the pass across. Fiber's just going to slam the backboard. Difficulty here for Kami, but he's going to recover. Fiber hit for that backboard when he could have taken the shot. Even still, it does still keep it in Direwolves' favor as long as Walcott gets back. But
Fever has a chance.
Boosted him.
Oh, Fever has a chance, but puts it high, looks for the second touch, instead threw it to CJ. Kami didn't look like they were expecting that pass, though. I'm not sure if it was a fake, if that was planned. Either way, no shots come as a result of it just yet. Kami now is again going to try to play the backboard. Walcott with the disruption, leaves it for Fever, crossing up the net, but the shot still isn't coming.
Well, Fever's meant to be the best player in OCE, based on our opinion, and it looking like that's wrong at the moment. Misty was hitting all those angles from the corner. Fever's been struggling to hit the same one, and now it's Misty down the other end looking for goal.
What? How is he allowed to get away with that, Yummy? I mean, yes, a couple of defenders did challenge him, but after that midfield challenge, he kind of just drove that one straight into the net as the Renegades were kind of catching their breath and watching along. A massive goal for the Direwolves.
That's why you see Walcott laugh, and he's laughing at CJ. Because when have you ever seen CJ in a defensive situation?
Oh, no.
Not smashing out that ball. And now off the kickoff, Fiber's made it goal number 3. They're putting a stranglehold on the grand final.
It was game 4, I believe, against Riot, where Riot was 0. The Renegades can come back from these situations. However, during that
was
series,
after Renegades were already 3-0 up in the series.
Exactly. The confidence and the momentum was still on the Renegades side. This series, a complete turn of fortune right now. The Direwolves have been the one dictating the tempo. The Direwolves have been that proactive team, and now they are 2.5 minutes away from a top 2 finish guaranteed.
Misty, go on! Somebody stop this man!
Even Misty is pumped after that. Usually stoic, this time popping off, and how can you not? The reset on point. 4-0 lead for the Direwolves. They are marching their way to a final appearance.
Walcott's happy with that, and this is the kind of performance that puts Misty on the map. Finally having a performance that we have seen from him in off-season tournaments and have yet to truly see in RLCS.
It is
They're right next door to their second ever top 2. In fact, they have to have sealed the deal with that one.
It feels like the Renegades have almost kind of conceded in this matchup just with the amount of field they're conceding right now. Everyone desperate to try and play it forward. They ignore the fact that Fiber is cheating back, and one interception is all it's needed to punish them. 5-0 lead right now. 2 minutes remaining. The Direwolves, they just need to play defense, something that this team excels at.
You saw a little bit quiet there on the Renegades webcams as well, especially compared to Direwolves. But you saw CJ coming out and talking. We know he's going to go, okay, guys, let's give it our best. Let's see what we can do. And they will never give up in these situations.
Absolutely not. I mean, this is RLCS. You can't afford to give up. Case in point, CJ just driving that one across the middle of the field, 141 kilometers per hour. That is a massive clanger.
The players down in the lower bracket as well. Maybe hurting a little bit to see Renegades coming down here. Ground zero earlier, though, went down to the lower bracket and got eliminated by one of the teams for Kitten, who are still waiting down there in that 3rd, 4th place match at the moment. They would have much preferred to verse the Direwolves, but I don't think that's going to happen. Direwolves have come to play today.
See, but that's just it, though. Do you really want to verse the Direwolves when they are playing like this, when Misty looks on point as they have been? I mean, if I'm watching this game, I'd rather take my chances against the Renegades right now.
You might, but I don't think a lot of teams would. I think a lot of teams know the fact that Renegades could have a bad series. In fact, you just have to look at last split and maybe look at it one day, a terrible quarterfinal, and then all of a sudden the semifinals and the grand finals have been the best performance of their life. And so I still don't think you take that gamble against the Renegades. They're just going to keep going, though, Direwolves. They're scoring over and over and over again against a team, Renegades, who came out on top last split.
One goal away from that infamous scoreline whose name I shall not speak, but it has to be on people's minds right now if that is the message being sent by the Direwolves to the rest of this event. That is how they beat the Renegades. I think that could be something special, although Renegades are still going to try to find ways to put more goals through. Kami keeps it up. Walcott will slow it down. I have to feel like, though, going to that lower bracket, Renegades are going to come back super motivated. Again, I trust their coaching. I trust their system. This is a team that can bounce back.
Well, it doesn't matter how motivated you are if you're not hitting the shots like we've seen. I mean, there were a couple of games in this series that were one-goal games that could have maybe gone to an overtime at least, or even gone in Renegades' way if any one of the three of them started hitting their shots on the regular like they were yesterday. Like we saw yesterday when we thought, okay, this is the best team in the competition. And yet Direwolves at the other end, you look at some of the angles they've had, Misty and his angles, he hasn't been able to miss, and now Direwolves have done it. They've gone through to the grand final.
And it almost looks like a sigh of relief initially coming from them. The fist bump, yeah, you earned that one, Misty. You earned that in spades. A fantastic performance from the Wolfpack. They're our first team in the finals on an event. I mean, realistically, though, Yummy, what is one more surprise after we've had so many?
Yeah, I mean, it has to